Briefly, I'd just like to talk about the Vedic view of matter, what matter is. The modern scientists, they say that the elements of matter, the chemical elements like carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, helium, uranium, radium, and so on. First thing is that these are not all elements of our everyday existence, our everyday experience. None of us uses phosphorus, or actually generally sees phosphorus, sees sodium, sees fluorine. We don't use these things. They're artificial constructs, actually. Conceptually, they're part of the universe, but they're created by an artificial process. So those elements themselves are not elements of our direct everyday experience, first thing. Second thing is that you can break them down into protons, neutrons, electrons, and so on. So in that sense, they're also not elements. And third thing is that the very heavy elements, the transuranic elements, beyond uranium, they're also chemical elements, but they're very artificial. Some of them, they've created just one atom, which existed for a zillionth of a second, and then decomposed. But they're also elements in the sense that modern scientists say. So my point is that the so-called elements that they talk about, even the subatomic particles also, in principle they can always be decomposed. They're not real elements. So what are the elements? Well, if we look around us, here for example, we'll see solids. We'll see fluids, liquids, like my body is fluid and there's liquid in the glasses. Energy, the lights are emitting energy, the sun is emitting energy. Movement is taking place. As I move myself, as I move my mouth, my body, movement is taking place. And there's space, it's taking place within this room. So these are 5 essential elements and if you look around, you won't see anything that doesn't fit into those 5 categories: solidity, fluidity, energy, movement, and space, accommodating space. This is the Vedic conception that the elements of existence, the gross elements of existence, are function and not substance. So the Vedic, they talk about earth, which is like typical of solidity. Water embodies the principle of fluidity. Fire embodies the principle of energy. Air embodies the principle of movement, and ether embodies the principle of space. So the Vedas talk about 5 elements as being earth, water, fire, air, and ether, as the alchemists said. If you say that, for example, solidity, well, that's due to the atoms. You try and explain it in terms of the atoms. So let's have a look at what they say about atoms. Atoms have definite form. That's the definition of solidity. They're also fluid, otherwise they can't combine with each other. They're fluid to some extent. There's energy in the atom, we know, equals mc squared. There's movement in the atom as well. The electrons are supposed to be moving around the nucleus. And they all exist within space. In fact, according to the scientists, the majority of the atom actually consists of empty space. So these 5 elements also exist within the atom. It doesn't matter what you do, you can't get away from them. In the Vedic conception, these are the gross elements of the universe. The Vedic conception goes further though, because how do you know about solidity, fluidity, energy, movement, and space? Because you have perception. We can see, we can hear, we can touch, we can taste, we can smell. So the objects of the senses, the subtle objects of the senses, these are also elements, because like, for example, perception. How would you analyze perception? How would you analyze sight into anything more fundamental? We can't. How would you analyze sound into anything more fundamental? The principle of sound, the experience of sound, is fundamental. So that's another 5. These are 5 elements. Another 5 elements are the senses for gaining knowledge. The sense of hearing, the sense of seeing, the sense of touch, taste, smell. These are also fundamental. Of course, the ear, you can examine the structure of the ear, the structure of the nose, the structure of the eye, and you can see how perception takes place. But that doesn't explain the fact that perception takes place. So that faculty is also an irreducible element. Then there's activity. Activity is also part of science. So the facility for manipulation, the faculty for locomotion, moving around, the faculty for communication, these are also elementary principles. And also in the Vedic, they mention two more essential principles in the body. One is insemination, and the other one is excretion. So these are 5 active principles. That's 20 elements. Then there's the mind. We can't also analyze the mind any further. Choosing, accepting and rejecting. This is also an element. You can analyze the brain, but in order to analyze the brain, you still have to use the mind. You're still dependent on this accepting and rejecting ideas. Further than that, the mind works, but it has to be directed. We have to use our intelligence as well. A child uses the child's mind and an adult's mind. They don't work in the same way because an adult has more directed intelligence. And a scientist is supposed to be particularly intelligent. In other words, he directs his mind in a very, very consistent and logical way. So the intelligence, buddhi, that's another element. Then, another important element is the individual conscious entity that uses all of these faculties. The I. Everything around us is changing, the body is changing, but the I-ness does not change. I was 5, I was 10, I was 15, I was 20. So I-ness doesn't change. It's non-material, non-physical, the I. This is another important aspect. And then there's the universal self as well. And there's some subtle aspect of material nature that makes us think that although we're non-physical conscious entities, it makes us think that we're matter. Like the physical scientists, they think that we're just chunks of matter. So this is another element which makes the non-physical self think that it's, or conceive that it's part of matter. This is called false ego, ahankara. So these are the actual Vedic elements. And it's a very consistent worldview because they're saying that the real basis of matter, the real basis of the universe, corresponds to the logical basis of our experience. Our experience depends on perception, it depends on the mind. So, in the Vedic point of view, it's saying that these are irreducible elements actually of the world itself, that these manifest in a sequence when the world is manifested.